Well, hello there, and welcome to day 45 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley, featuring my guest, Helen Faulkner.
Yeah.
We thought that since it's Valentine's Day, that we would do a special romantic episode. So here we are in dressing gown, pyjamas, and we've just watched the film Top Hat. So it's a bit of a dual reason why I brought Helen on, partly because of the theme, but also because, as I mentioned in the Singing in the Rain film, she is quite the expert in all things golden age of musicals. So I thought I could have her tell me about Top Hat, Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire, and sort of because I think what I'm trying to do with the musical of this era is really sort of learn the language of it and learn about, because I do still feel like an outsider to the genre, and I still really want to sort of get into the text of it and learn about it, rather than come at it from a perspective of, well, I get it, but I don't. So consequently, I thought you could tell me a bit about the film and about Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire and educate me.
Well, they appeared in 10 films in total together. This was their fourth. They appeared in 9 throughout the 30s, and then I think they appeared in their last one about 10 years after the previous one as a sort of final hurrah. Fred Astaire actually danced with lots of different dance partners throughout the years, but he's most famous for dancing with Ginger Rogers.
So why is there a reason why Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers started working together like that, or was it just they were put together and then they realised?
Well, back in the day when stars were owned by studios, they were both owned by the same studio, and I think they just had great chemistry and people liked watching them appear together, and they worked well together. So, and had good, dance chemistry, if you like.
So that's the thing I did notice. The strange thing about Top Hat is you don't really get to see them perform together till about halfway through the film. The park sequence is really their first dance number.
That's probably a third of the way through.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely a Fred-led film in terms of the story being him being the sort of typical bachelor about town type character, and then and his friend wanting to introduce him to a young woman and him not being so keen, and then because of plot, them meeting and slowly falling in love over the course of the film. Because he has, 4 numbers in total out of the 5?
Well, he's in all of them. But well, that was quite typical of their films together. They were sort of they were two-handers between them, mostly. Actually, maybe they weren't, but a lot of them were about him, sort of, and the plot lines often were quite similar.
I assume partly the reason for that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because he's quite a strong dancer by himself. His sort of tap abilities, and this film definitely demonstrates his skill for doing elaborate choreographed sequences, whether it's with someone else or by himself. Whereas I assume Ginger Rogers is more of a ballroom performer, or she would do things in an ensemble in some way. Is that right?
I think she was sort of equally talented, and the old saying, she did everything he did going backwards in high heels. But there was a way that Fred Astaire worked. He had a sort of partner called Hermes Pan, who between them would choreograph the entire dance numbers, where Pan would play Ginger Rogers' part, and then once they'd figured out all the dance numbers, they would then bring in Ginger Rogers and she would learn the dance.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's sort of structured around, presumably because he leads.
Yeah.
So therefore, would structure around him, and then she would come in, and so he would then know how to lead her.
Yeah.
To lead the actual choreography of the dances numbers. Well, that's interesting. It's interesting. The other thing that sort of caught me off guard to start with is it's black and white, and I know that should be obvious. It's a film from what year did 35?
35.
35, 1935, and so of course it's black and white. But I think Singing in the Rain kind of got me in that mindset that kind of film was a Technicolor film.
Yeah, but Singing in the Rain came out maybe 15 to 20 years after. It was a different era of musicals, so...
I think the problem is that Singing in the Rain is a throwback to that kind of era of film, so which is confusing, because then of course it's like, oh, but that isn't that era of film, it is just about that era of film. Of course, the thing that was obvious to me was this is like, and it makes sense for the kind of movies they made of the time, but this is sort of your traditional Shakespearean comedy of errors. Like you're very, it's set in a way that makes me even the setting, which is it's set across 2 hotels, made me think of like that sort of Shakespearean. Oh, they tend to center them on one location, and then it's just about the fact that characters don't meet other characters. The context in which they meet each other creates confusion between identities, and so therefore everyone thinks everyone's having an affair, and people are running around, threatening each other or slapping each other across the face. There was a surprising number of slaps and punches, which I was quite like. I was like, man, between Fred Astaire and I don't know if you know the name of the actor.
I can't remember his name.
No, but the guy who plays Horace Chadwick. They get hit a fair amount in this film, although one off screen, admittedly. The good one, the one I really wanted, was off screen, which is Chadwick's wife hitting him in the eye.
Yeah, but it's all slapstick, so
Yeah,
nobody really gets hurt.
No, it's all in sort of the name of silliness, but the batterings that they seem to get in this film are quite amusing. So this is the 4th in their thing. So this is sort of the midpoint. They've gotten into the flow of it. Is there anything important about like why Top Hat's well remembered amongst people say, because you were saying to me before that Top Hat's sort of their most well known film.
I don't know. I think maybe the story is easier to follow, and like Cheek to Cheek is probably their most famous partner dance that they ever did. And everything about the romantic music and the dress and the choreography.
Did they ever do any in colour later on?
Yeah.
So we will, when we return to other ones, it'll be a mix of black and white and colour.
I'm not 100% sure. The last one they did was definitely in colour.
But this is their kind of peak. Is it one of those situations where the first couple of them getting to know each other professionally, sort of get familiar with each other, and then you get to this, and this is them really hitting the flow, and then after that it's very much sort of maintaining and capturing that same magic?
I'm not sure, because I haven't seen them all. I've seen about 4 of them.
How amongst those 4, are those sort of the first 4, or sort of they smatterings across?
They were across, so I've seen the last one they did, and then I've seen a couple between Top Hat and that one.
Okay, and you've seen... Oh, okay, so this is the earliest one you've seen?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I believe the first one they were in together, they weren't the main characters. I could be wrong about that, though.
Oh, that would be interesting to see in the first one, to see if there must have been something in their chemistry that meant that people recognised they should be working together as leads. And it would be interesting to see if they're the leads in it or not, and whether that sort of played a factor in it. But that requires foreknowledge that I just don't have it, or either of us have at the minute. So of the 4, where do you rank this?
This is probably the best one.
It's the best one of the 4?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, it's the only one that really stuck out in my memory. Like, the other 3, I remember maybe songs from them or bits and pieces, but I don't remember them quite as clearly, and I don't remember the entire story.
This is the one that comes together the nicest. Okay. And in terms of like where we are in film cinema, what's sort of going, like, musical... Are we still in the early days, or are we in the midpoint of sort of the musical?
Well, what year is it? 35, and the first Talking Picture was 28, so this was back early when musicals were cheap to make and easy to make, because you could easily record music beforehand and then just have people mime and play music for people to dance to, and it was easy, and it translated well onto screen. So it was still in that kind of heyday where they made as many musicals as possible.
Okay, and then that presumably continued until the 50s? Or was it earlier than that? They sort of started to... What was sort of the point at which the Golden Age musical started to slow?
Probably 60s, if you think Rodgers and Hammerstein sort of filmography was about the 60s.
Okay.
And then musicals became slightly less popular with the sort of new Hollywood brats.
Mm. So it goes from it goes from Fred and Ginger in the 30s. It goes from sort of early pioneers to Fred and Ginger to Rodgers and Hammerstein, and then sort of starts tailing off around that time.
Yeah, but it's a bit more complex.
I know. I'm trying to sort of outline sort of an overview of the genre as a whole, and sort of how they play into it, I suppose.
What did you think of the movie, darling?
I liked it. It is still that problem of... there are twofold problems for me, which is the first one being that of the musical styling of it. And I like the dance sequences, and I will admit, this one, the dance sequences were more appealing, and I can see why Fred is so eye-catching, because he has this natural charisma, not just in his performance, but in his actual style as a dancer. There's just something, the way his legs move, sort of this natural, like I say, charisma to it, and I think that is quite good. But it is still me trying to push through the fact that I'm not as fond of this style of music. But I did like the songs in it. There weren't that many, but I did like... I think 4 out of 5 of them I found quite catchy. I think there was one which I found a little dull. But 4 out of 5 of them I actually found quite catchy. And I said to you in the previous video, what was the musical I did last week?
Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
The problem I had with Seven Brides for Seven Brothers was on the town problem, where it's more interested in its dancing really than its singing, and none of the songs, maybe one, had caught my attention, but I couldn't remember them after I'd seen them particularly well. Whereas these, I think there's at least 2 that I think, you go, oh, that does have a nice tune to it. I actually, think that the song is quite nice, like the Heaven one, and we had this problem earlier about, what was it called, dancing, the one in the rain.
Isn't it a lovely day?
Isn't it a lovely day to be raining?
To be caught in the rain.
Okay. But both of those are quite, quite catchy songs. I think the other issue, and this is more of a technical one, was the fact that because it's a 1935 film, and remastering is quite difficult for stuff that early because the technology just isn't there. I did find particularly the audio quality quite distracting. I kind of got into it after about half an hour, but it was quite distracting how many pops and audio snuffs there were, where I was like, oh, you could clean that up quite easily now. But I quite liked it. Again, they are both very charismatic, both Fred and Ginger. They have a really sweet chemistry to them, and I did like the setting, and I like the fact that it really boils down to 6 characters, which is Fred and Ginger, Mr. and Mrs. Hardwick. I think I did Chadwick earlier. Yeah, Hardwick, the butler, or the valet, sorry, and the fashion designer. And something quite, again, it appeals to my Shakespearean sensibilities, the idea that you have these very 6 core characters and it centres around them. I find that quite appealing. Yeah, this is good. I can see why it's popular. I know that's a very sort of generic thing to say, but I can see why it's liked. But I still think I need to sort of learn the language of it. But yeah, so, interesting. I'm still well in the early steps of my journey of the musical, so we'll see how it goes. I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Mhm.